Bless the Lord on tonight. Y'all ready? We've been praying for the marriages. We're believing God that this is a church, that when people come into this church, that they will see healthy marriages. They will see marriages that exemplify us as the bride of Christ, meaning that we're learning how to love, we're learning how to grow together, walk together, talk together, and represent the bride of Christ. Amen. And on tonight, this whole point is for us to have fruitful marriages, marriages that are blessed and not cursed, and help us to figure out, well, what is it that we're doing wrong? On tonight, we're going to get, let me see, Patrick, can you come help me? Let me get 4 chairs up here. We're going to talk tonight to some people that have been divorced. The point of this is that we're trying to avoid divorce, right? That big D word, divorce, in this house. We fight for marriages in this house. Y'all know that? We're going to fight for marriages. We believe in the sanctity of marriage. We believe in the wholeness of it. And we want to get some godly counsel. We want to get some wisdom tonight from those that have been divorced, because we want to know what they learned in the process, what they can help us with to avoid divorce in our marriages. So I want them to impart. I'm going to ask Minister Chandrika and Apostle Vanessa to come on up. Amen. And Peter. Amen. All right, give me 5 cheers.
Hey, I'm going to say this too. Hey, so this is not necessarily to say, hey, what we did wrong, but how we can do it better. How we can do it better. Thomas Edison had a quote. They had, Thomas Edison, he invented the light bulb, and they said it took him like 10,000 times, and he said that he didn't fail 10,000 times. He simply found out 10,000 ways that didn't work.
That didn't work. That's it.
10,000 ways that didn't work. And so that's what tonight is all about, how we can be better and how we can do it better.
Amen, amen, amen. So one of the things that I asked them to do, y'all, and y'all going to help us, y'all going to ask questions and all of this stuff tonight as well, because y'all know this is interactive. We love to get feedback and question comments from you all. So one of the things that I asked Sean and Apostle to do was give me the top 3 things that they thought was most beneficial from what they learned from being divorced. I'm gonna start with Apostle. Give us your first thing, your number 1 thing that you learned in the process of getting divorced that helped you be better for your next marriage or for the next person that God has for you.
I learned better communication.
Okay, communication. Describe your communication. What was so bad about your communication?
What was so bad about mine is that I didn't want you to know how I really felt in my heart when you hurt me. That was one of the reasons why I didn't want to communicate, because I didn't trust you with my heart. And I didn't communicate the fact is that I don't trust you.
Okay, can we park right there, because there are some women that will say any and everything that comes to their mind to let you know how they feel. And then there are some that will hold it in. When you had an issue in your marriage, you're saying that you were one that would not say how you felt. You just kind of made peace instead of keep peace.
That's exactly what I used to try to keep peace.
That's what it is, keep peace, not make. Okay.
I used to try to keep peace. And I just held it in because I didn't want you to think I was weak. I didn't want to show weakness because I had to fight all my life.
So being vulnerable was a sign of weakness.
To me, yes.
Okay. Can anybody relate to that? Saying what you really feel is, and maybe crying and pouring out your heart is a sign of weakness? Anybody else think that? It could man, woman, boy, girl, it doesn't matter. It's a Apostle, you the only one that holds stuff in?
No, I hold stuff
But that not because you weak. Okay, not because you weak. She ain't weak now. No, that ain't it. That ain't it.
That ain't the problem.
Okay, so holding stuff in. One thing that I learned about people that hold stuff in is that when they really want to let it out, they're time bomb. They just explode.
Right.
And that's not healthy. You know, because one of the things we know that when you harbor things in your heart, the manifestation of it, like if there is anger, if there is unforgiveness, if there is bitterness, when you harbor that in your heart, it begins to manifest so many different things in your life that's negative, that's not good. And then before you know it, you stressed out, you frustrated, you sick, you got so many issues going on. And so we have to make sure, listen, she's saying that this is one of the things that led to what?
Divorce.
That contributed to divorce. Now, but we also, I want to talk about something as well, because when you're a person that holds stuff in and don't feel vulnerable enough and you feel like you can't trust somebody, there's always something more. And it doesn't have to do with that person that you're married to. This comes from childhood. Something that started at a young age, and I don't know when, but something that started at a young age that made you have somewhat of maybe a fear.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Can you describe that?
Well, the thing is that I had a stepfather that was mean, and my mother was the type of woman that she was so sweet and loving and kind, and she always would tell him her heart, and he would still be mean. So he still would be mean. I mean, he still was so controlling. And I said, well, Mom, why you always telling him how you feel? When he's going to still try to control you, he'll try to manipulate the fact that you're sweet, you're loving, you're forgiving. So I took that over into adulthood. When I got married, that I didn't want to, even though they were doing wrong, I tried to treat them like my mom used to treat my stepdad, but I would react the way she did.
This is something that's very serious that we need to talk about. I think we need to take a note of what is it that is coming from our childhood that's interfering with our marriagehood. Everybody understand that? There is something that is in your childhood that could be interfering with your marriagehood and how you and your spouse are treating one another, relating to one another, talking to one another. Can anybody relate to that? Anybody connect with that? You know, y'all know we be transparent in here, so don't be shy.
Well, it's one.
Yes, we do. We have someone
I would say that my mom, she was a really, really strong woman, and I think we kind of touched on this last time, but she was really strong, and my stepdad was really calm, cool, collected. He did everything for us. She was the working woman, worked 3 jobs after her divorce, and she just, I don't know, she just ruled with the iron fist, you know, and he just did everything she said do. So when I got married, I immediately thought, well, me and Patrick have been together, 18 years now. So 18 years ago, I immediately thought I was going to be the one that had to do everything. You know, I was the one that had to run everything. I was pointing fingers, and he got tired of me pointing fingers at about year 3 or 4, and he got a voice, and when he did, it was a fierce voice. And he started talking back, and it was like, well, what happened? And this ain't how it's supposed to be. And right. So I have now, he's worse than me now, but I've now learned to just be quiet sometimes. But then it was like, I want to run it. I want to, what do you say? You know I be quiet, man. You know I be quiet. Now, he be doing the most, y'all. I'm telling you, he be doing the most now. But I had to learn that wasn't the right way. It was not just because I saw my mom felt that she couldn't lose control again because she had with my dad. She was a housewife with my dad. She was, I mean, you could eat off our floors. People would come over our house and say, you could eat off the floor that we walked on, because that's how clean our home was. We were well put together. When my mom left the house and went to work 3 jobs and left my dad, she just became a completely different person. Like, she would not clean, she would not cook, she didn't even wash our clothes. So I can say that I took that from, because I was 2 when she left my dad. My sisters, I find myself they still need that mothering that she used to give them. And I find myself even trying to be that for them. Because they missed that. Like, they missed out. They were older when she left, so they understood what it was to be mothered fully. I knew what it was to have my stepdad take care of me. He was there when, my girl stuff came. He was there when at every volleyball, softball, choir, debate, everything. He never missed anything. He was the one that was there every moment in my life, as opposed to my mother. So the roles got reversed.
So with that being said, you became your mother.
Yeah.
Even in your marriage, you became your mother. Even with your siblings, you became your mother.
Yep.
And it affected your marriage in a negative way. I don't know if y'all are listening, but this is something that we have to make sure we pay attention to, that we are not becoming the father or the mother that did X, Y, and Z to us, or showed us X, Y, and Z as a child. Because the whole point is we're learning what took us, was what helped in the divorce, what pushed the other person away. And the goal is we're not trying to push each other away, we're trying to get closer together.
I want to piggyback on something, what she said about how a lot of times we don't say nothing, we just hold it in. And here's the truth about thoughts, and this is why the Bible says, we have to take every thought captive and bring it under submission of Jesus Christ, is because a lot of times we think just because we don't say it, then it's okay. But here's the truth, and this is heavy, but it's the truth, that your thoughts are not even a secret. Your thoughts are not a secret, because even though you may not say it to them, it's coming out somewhere. Yeah. And so this is so funny. I've had people, like, just some of the people that know me right here in the ministry, they come and tell me, like, Pastor boy, you could have seen the look on your face when that happened or that happened or that happened. I didn't say it, but I was thinking it. Yeah. And so it's not a secret, because it came out, maybe not verbally, but it came out. And so just because you're not saying it to that person, you may take it out on the kids. You may take it out on this person. You may take it out on somebody at the workplace. It's those thoughts, those feelings, they're coming out somewhere. So that's what we have to be careful of. Here's my second thing, and I'm done. That me and my wife, we was counseling a couple weeks ago, and one of the things we shared with them that having disagreements and arguments, that's life, that's marriage. And we call this, you have to learn how to fight fair. You got to learn how to fight fair. So, because you're going to do it anyway. I mean, it's inevitable. You're not going to get around it. You're going to have disagreements. You're going to have fights. You just got to learn how to fight fair. Like, and one of the examples that we gave is, like, me and my wife, like, years ago, we, young and immature, used to always throw around the word divorce. We get into an argument about anything. Oh, we get a divorce. We get a divorce. And so one day, we said, what did I call it? Weapons of mass destructions. Yeah. That's what we call them. So divorce was a weapon of mass destruction. We couldn't say that anymore. So Russia and the U.S. Back in the Cold War, I was telling you, they signed a treaty. This is a true story. They signed a treaty and said, because they the two superpowers, right? U.S. and Russia. if we ever get into a war, we can't use nuclear weapons. Because if we do, not only will it destroy your country or our country, but it's going to destroy the whole world. That's a true story. So if we ever got into it, Russia treaty says we can't use nuclear weapons because we're going to destroy the whole world. And so some things it's okay to fight. You just gotta if this ever happen, we can't do this. We can't do this because if we do, then it's going to blow up this whole ship. And I think we have to get to a point where we realize that it's some things like we can't go down that route, and we can't do that. So for years now, whatever, I don't care how bad or whatever argument we want to call it, we don't argue much. We have disagreements now. Yeah, we do. But that word never comes up. Never comes up, no matter what.
Well, because that is a destruction that is not just going to tear up your house. It's going to tear up your kids. It's going to tear up your finances. It's going to tear up your mental mindset, your spiritual being. It's just, you do that, it's going to destroy everything connected to you. But it's just a scapegoat. It's an easy way out where I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. And then going back to the person that's quiet, and you said it comes out regardless. Watch this. A woman that, if you mad with your husband, that I used to be good at this. What's wrong with you, man? Ain't nothing wrong with me. What's wrong with you? You know? But something was wrong. And you could tell by the way I responded, what's wrong with you? Something must be wrong with you because ain't nothing wrong with me. And you throw it back on them when it's really, there is something there. And so what we have, one thing I purpose in my heart, have a heart that's quick to repent. Like if you wrong, just say you're wrong. If you're going down the wrong path, say you're thinking wrong thoughts, just quickly, just let it go. Because if you don't, that thing builds and builds and builds. And now when you release it, it's just going to hurt. It's going to bring hurt, harm, and danger to people you care about.
I just want to say, go back to what you were saying. If you hold it in, your physical body cannot handle negativity. So holding it in will cause physical ailments to come upon your body. So if you keep holding stuff in, and this is scientific, your body will have to do something with that negativity. So you'll find yourself sick, your immune system is going down, you find yourself getting diseases, and that's why we always have new diseases, because those people who are getting these diseases have held something so negative, so traumatic, so whatever in that the body says, okay, you ain't gonna talk about it, you ain't gonna do nothing about it, I'll do something for you about it. And so we have to be totally wise, even in marriage, of holding things in. What are we really, it could be a nuclear weapon of mass destruction for our bodies first, and then outwardly it could be for everybody else that's connected to us. And our body language is the biggest thing. It says, studies show that 90% of our language is through our body language. And so even if you held it in, your body language will be interpreted by that person. And so you have to just be totally wise in what it really looks like to hold it in. Now, if you need to, and I'm grateful for Pastor Tricia and Pastor D, they don't, if there's something major, and I've seen them majorly disagree, they take a moment to breathe because they don't want to respond in anger. So there's a difference between holding it in and having a moment to process. And Pastor Tricia say, I process, but her process is a little bit longer. But I process so I won't respond in anger. So there's a difference of let me take a step back, let me breathe so I don't respond out of my emotional anger. Let me really respond in a repentant way, or in a place where I can express myself, but it's not to the point of I'm gonna damage you like you damaged me.
Anybody want to add to that?
I want to add a little to that. For with me, you know, I'm the type one, I don't like to argue, debate with you, because this one, my main word, you know what you did, I know what you did. So why am I going to waste my breath on you, telling you what you did? That wasn't always right. But that's what I did. That was my way of escape, letting them know, acknowledge what you did. I already have a knowledge, so what you going to do about it? and then I get quiet.
Okay, so what men don't a lot of times like to acknowledge or say anything. What do you do then when they're not really saying anything?
I don't think that's absolutely accurate. I think we do. I think it's the approach. I think it's the approach sometimes that the women take that keeps us.
Don't nobody want to say that.
We're going to rebuke that right now. But I think it sometimes is the approach that women take that allow us to sit back. Because, and there's nothing wrong. I was raised with a strong woman, and I appreciate, when I say strong, not in a stereotypical way, but she was successful. She was a successful woman. So she knew what she wanted, she knew how to go get it. But there's a way that can challenge a man that will make a man shut down.
Right.
And sometimes we shut down because what we're going to say, we already know you ain't gonna like this. And in order to take it to a whole different level, we'll sit back. Now, it's the communication gap. We like to be talked to nicely just as well as you like to be talked to nicely as well. So you have to be mindful of the approach. And you have to be patient if we don't give you that answer in your time. Because the same thing goes for me, the same thing applies to me. I like to process things. My first marriage failed drastically because we knew how to argue very successfully. we knew how to hurt each other very successfully. And the only thing that was going was sex. So we made up with the sex, and after sex, there was no communication. So at the end of the day, all we had was bicker and sex. Bicker and sex.
Wow.
And then half the time, if we weren't having sex, I couldn't stand when she touched me, and I could tell she didn't like when I touched her. So we had to learn now how to separate successfully. So we had to learn how to communicate because we had kids involved. And I thank God now because it was a process that took a number of years. And it's still going on to this day. That process, 13 years later, is still going on to this day where we have to learn how to communicate because there's children involved. And all the physical is out, so now we can learn. There's no pacifier. There's no pacifier. There's no middle ground, so we have to learn how to talk. And you can believe, when you're ready to argue, there's been times when she was in New York and I'm here in Birmingham, Alabama, and we would go at it like we right in front of each other because just
Y'all were good at
the
that.
communication, we were doing what was really good. We knew how to do that.
That was y'all communication skills.
And we were good at it.
Yeah.
I mean, literally. We would say, hey, how you doing? Why you doing that? Ain't none of my business. I'm in Birmingham.
Right.
I'm way here. She's in the Bronx in New York. Why do I care? Why does she care?
Let's talk about the constant arguing though. The constant arguing and the makeup with sex. Because I think you hit something that is good and it's not really addressed because you can argue and you can make up with sex, but if you didn't resolve anything, you're going to go right back to square one because like you said, sex only just pacified what had happened. So let's talk about then people that deal with that. Like how we got to figure out how do we deal with this before the sex so that the sex can be more enjoyable, and then after the sex you still can have peace.
So, I've been reading about that and watching things, videos.
Mm-hmm.
This guy's been sending me videos, and I've been watching videos from everywhere. But one of the things that I'm finding is a constant in every message that I'm getting is that each of you have to deal with your own communication issues
That's good.
first. Because if you don't have that constant, which is sex most of the time, and you don't know how to communicate, it's a disaster waiting to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone learns how to communicate, it doesn't matter. Because then you're communicating by yourself. Because the other person usually shuts down. So each of you have to find a way to communicate. What a lot of people do is they, in some form, pour a blanket over everything, and they just say, we're going to make it work, or we're going to make this happen. But they never deal with their own issue of communication. And so when one's ready, the other's still not ready because they haven't dealt with their issue of communication.
Pastor Derrick, what do you think, coming from you, I think that was really good. Thank you for that, Tommy. What do you think in regards to what Tommy said, as a man who struggled with communication, how do you help another man that's struggling, that's frustrated with their wife because they can't communicate and they don't know how to communicate? How do you help a man in the same position that you were once in to better himself in that area?
Well, a few things. I can remember the church that we began to spiritually mature in. I never forget, we was at one of these sessions just like this. We was good with no marriage issues, just a session just like this. And my pastor, my bishop's wife, asked a question. She says, who in here keeps peace or make peace? And I was like, because I was that guy, I just go with the flow. I'm just going, whatever, just go with the flow. And I raised my hand so proud. Like, I just keep peace. And she says, that's a spineless man. I said, and then we begin to talk about Matthew 5. They say that's the greatest sermon he ever preached, the Sermon on the Mount, right? And get down to somewhere in chapter 5, it said, blessed are the peacemakers. Blessed are the peacemakers. It never says anything about peacekeepers, but it said, blessed are the peacemakers. And in order to have peace, you have to make peace. And so for me, I just really understood that. And then another thing, this is corny, but it's true. How we always say the term like, well, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. A couple years ago, I was just thinking about that thing, and I was like, well, if daddy ain't happy, ain't nobody happy either. No, I'm being serious. That's how, like, honestly, it's corny, but like, that's how I got, like, well, daddy ain't happy, ain't nobody happy either, because it's true. If I go back to what I just said, that if and this is right, wrong, and different, however people feel about it, this is the truth. If a man can't feel like a man at home, he gonna feel like a man somewhere. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it right, so let down your guard. If he can't feel like a man in his house, he's gonna feel like a man somewhere. And for me, I know that wasn't an option. So for me, and then too, like even I think it poured over to like my secular job. Like, I always found myself having to be in front of people to give speeches and communicate. Always, without even trying to. And I always found myself in front of that. And so I would literally just ride down the road in the car and just begin to speak to myself, learn how to pronounce words correctly and do all those things to really help me with my communication, because I knew that if we were going to make it, then some things had to change. I used to say this about my wife. Years and years ago. I used to say, man, my wife is one of the best communicators that I've ever met. But then I was saying it because I think that because she could get it out. But me, I'm like, really wasn't saying anything. But I understood that in order for us to be better, it's like Tommy said, that you have to get better individually before you can be better collectively.
Yeah. Go ahead, Apostle.
I want, because I want to make sure I understand the part about how husband, wife, can have sex after argument, and argument had been settled. So in my mind, I was thinking, oh, well, men, they don't have no connection to it no way. You know what I'm saying? It's no connection with it, because they could do it and don't have no feelings with it. They still gonna be happy. And the wife still not happy. So all these different things was in my mind. Like, because how a man intuition, so I ain't gonna have it with you. I will withdraw from that until we get an understanding. We're not gonna do these things until we get an understanding. So you can be happy and I can be happy.
Yeah.
And that's the truth, you know, because women are more emotionally connected, men are more physically connected. Am I wrong? I mean, y'all disagree? Okay, yeah, that's good. Okay, so men are more physically connected, women are more emotionally connected. If I'm emotionally detached from you, I'm not going to get anything out of this physical connection that you're desiring, right? This is all about you, bro. Go on and do what you're going to do, okay? So that's the mindset that a lot of women will have. But one thing I want to park right here is before you get an understanding, Pastor Derrick said something powerful. It related to what Tommy said. Was like, I was a dynamic communicator. He wasn't that good. Preparation had to meet up with the opportunity. He had to go back and say, you know what? I'm really not that good at this. So let me prepare so that when the opportunity comes, that I can actually have a decent conversation with my wife and we can fix what's broken. How many people, and it's not necessarily men, because some women may not be good communicators either. How many people will go back and say, you know what, the way I communicate to him or her is off. It's not well received. I'm not getting it out like I want to. How do I fix that? How many people will go back and say that? And say, I need to do something about it. But if you don't think you're not that good at communicating, you're not going to go back and fix it. The other person thinks that you're horrible. You think you're good. You think you're okay. How do you fix it when one person thinks they're okay and the other person thinks that they're not? So now you got two different opinions at war with one another. And when you come together, the same thing is going to happen, because guess what? One person think they're good and the other person think they ain't.
But here's something else as well, that sometimes we have to understand that sometimes when they have people really not communicating, they're just talking. They're just talking.
That's good.
Because, and I'll be honest, that's what was happening to us a lot of times. My wife, I learned that she wasn't communicating, she was just talking at me. Like, even though she could enunciate the words adequate, great, and like, no, she's not communicating, she's just talking at me. And so that could happen a lot of times to where people just talk and there's no communication. Communication is two-way street. You know, you say something, I understand, I respond to it, but a lot of times that doesn't happen because for whatever reasons, and people don't have a chance or whatever. But I did want to say this, at the end of the day, it boils down to this right here. Especially as believers, that Ephesians 4:28-29 talks about, it says that no corrupt communication come out of your mouth, but only that is gonna uplift and build up the other person. So if we gauge our talk, our communication, whatever we may have it, by the word of God, then if it's not building that person up, we shouldn't say it. Point blank period. You know.
Pastor D, you said something good. You said you gotta talk with understanding. A lot of times there's a lot of misunderstanding and nobody's going back to say, hey, I didn't understand that. They just keep talking to somebody get to a rational point that where everybody agree. But in the end, that same situation comes back up, and then they realize it was a misunderstanding. But instead of them addressing when the misunderstanding took place, they not held it in to the next time. And now it's like, but you said X, Y, and Z, and they be like, no, that's not what I really meant. And so a lot of times we never go back to correct or ask, hey, did you understand what I was saying? And I know that sounds elementary, but there are times that you have to just go back and say, hey, I know I was like all over the place. And I know I was just pouring out my heart and it sounded like I was throwing up, but I really want to know, like, did you really understand where I was coming from?
And I think you just said something a light bulb went off. We teach people at my job, we teach them how to communicate, right? Communication 101. The biggest part is checking for understanding along the way.
Yes, that's
If you check for understanding, repeat. Sometimes it's as simple as I have been in the situation. Patrick will repeat something I said to me, and it sounds so dumb. And I'm like, did I say that? That was dumb. That was rude. That was ignorant. How do, you know? It sometimes it's as simple as repeating what someone said to you to check for your own understanding. If he says, you know what you just said, that was dumb, I probably wouldn't even hear him. But if he said, you know, Tommy, let me just make sure I got you right. When you said this, could you let me know what you meant about that a little bit more? Because I didn't quite get it. So I'm just checking for my own understanding. And when I hear it that way, it's like, did I really say that? Man, that was dumb. You have no choice but to say, dang, I could have said that a different way. Or that didn't come out right. Sometimes letting someone hear themselves is the best way to get them to understand that they're wrong. And sometimes checking for your own understanding is the best way to let you understand something truly. But you have to do it along the way. Don't wait. Especially if you're a bad communicator. You have to check for your understanding, whether it's repeating what they said to make sure you get it and you hear it yourself, or to make sure they hear it.
That's good. And you know, one thing too, it's okay in that moment that you hear it to let that person know if it hurts you.
That's right.
Like, as soon as they say, you're like, you know what, this is what I heard you say. And this is my interpretation, and it's kind of bothering me. That kind of hurt my feelings. Is that where you were coming from? Because that makes me feel a certain kind of way. And we don't say that in the moment that it happens. We just kind of let it go, and then we hold it in the moment that it happens. So I think one of the things that we really need to start doing is, if something is offensive or hurtful, this is a mention anything. Like, wait, you know what? That kind of just hurt my feelings. Did you mean what? Like, because this is how I'm getting it. Is that what you mean? Because that really bothers me.
I stir the pot for a moment and say this: that communication skill is something that should be taught from the beginning. Especially me being a father of girls and boys. I try to teach my young man how to communicate. And I take a note from pastors. The book which he says is not just ask, are you okay, but tell me why you're okay. And don't tell me, no, it's not a good day, but tell me why. What makes up the difference? What is it? So we can have an understanding of what's stirring you, what's moving you. And you have to be able to taught. Now, as young men, we're not really taught to communicate. We're told what to do. We're told what a man should be, what a real man should be, but we're never really told how to communicate. And we're never really introduced to intimacy until it's time to have a sex talk. So when we start to look and we say, oh, well, we're not that kind of affectionate, that's not how we learned it. That's not how we were showed. No one showed you how to be intimate and how to man, we just said, look, there it is, we're going at it. We're there. And there's no intimacy there. And so we have to teach this. And it's so important now that we teach this, because this generation has lost the ability, our men especially, to communicate. And we talk at them. We talked about this today. We seem to talk at our young men, and we tell them what you should do and how you should do it, and not do it this way and not do it that way. And 99 out of 100 people times it's coming from a woman. And we don't really know what kind of condition that woman is when she's teaching our men. So we have to be able to teach that by hearing and by asking those questions that you said, Minister, to where we can teach our young men, and I'm just going to stay on that because I don't speak for the men, and teach them how to communicate early. And be able to ask them legitimately what's bothering them and hear them out and not drive them in the direction that you want them to go to.
And let me say something on that real quick. I can remember a couple years ago, I was Deshaun would do something, and I would whoop him or just chastise him or something, and then dare him to cry. And that's how I was. That's how I was brought up, like hard, like get beat down and be like, stop crying. Like, you punching me, you beat me. How you want me to stop crying? And it was over. And I just had a revelation and it broke me down. Like, I cried so bad because I realized I was making him numb.
Yes, that's good.
I was making him numb to his emotion, his feelings, his whatever. And I'm talking about, like, it crushed me. Like, oh my God, like, it hurt me so bad. Like, it hurt me now just thinking about it. And so, and I would do it all the time. And so he was getting numb. Like, I would whoop him and he just stand there like, and wouldn't cry, try not to cry, but I was making it known, and it hurt me so bad. Like, I went found him and told his son, I apologize. Listen, cry. It's okay. Get it out. Like, it's okay. Guys cry, men cry. It's okay. And we sit there and we cry together. And like, I'm teary-eyed now just thinking about it, seriously, because and so we gotta teach that, like, it's okay. Like, as Spencer said, I still talk to him. Like, I talk to him every day about how to communicate. He look at me. Hey, don't look out for me when I'm talking. You look a man in his eyes. You know, shake my hand. I teach him those things right now. Let's do this. No, look at me. He's like, but Dad, that feels strange. I said, okay, it's all right. Hey, listen, if you gotta look out for a minute, just for a second, but you give them, because you gotta let them know, hey, I'm strong. I'm right in your face. I'm attentive. You got all of me. So I teach them those things, and so we have to do that. But again, like I said, we have to teach them that it's okay to be emotional and express yourself at the same time, because if we don't, we'll numb them and they'll go through life like that. It's like some men do.
I just want to say, a lot of men don't understand the intimacy for a woman is communication. Like, that is intimacy. Before you take my clothes off, before you tell me what you can and can't do, if you can communicate with my mind, if you can speak that language, if you can speak the logistics of my heart, then you get all of me. And I think with this generation, you know, being a therapist and being able to contact with this generation is all about text. And they're indirect in their communication. And I always tell the story how I was, my first client, which was a boy, he texted me the whole session.
He said, y'all sit right.
And we were sitting right here.
Wow.
And I said, okay, now I know your name, I know what you do, I know what you like. Can you put this phone down? And he looked at me like, I don't know how to talk to you without the phone. And so I had to teach him how to look me in my eyes like a 5-year-old. Teach him how to look me in my eyes and teach him to get over the discomfort or seeing somebody interact with his words. And so I totally agree that there's a lot of times this generation has the downfall of technology. And so they're wise, but they're weak. They're wise enough to use it for whatever they need it for, but they're weak in their communication. They're weak in their ability to have true intimacy via words with somebody face to face out of their mouth. But they're strong enough to type it in the text message. So we have to get to a place where we teach our young ladies and our young men that true intimacy, true communication, true ability to be in touch with somebody is through our words.
One of the things that, and I think we've said this before, that my husband and I always have is pillow talk. Every night we're talking, we're sharing our day, we're discussing different things, dreams and visions and plans, and we're excited about this idea, that idea, and what we see ourselves doing together, and different things like that. I want you to ask yourself, how many times do you have those pillow talks? How often do they come? How often do you share? How often do you build each other up? I don't think a day goes by where we don't say something, like all throughout the day, where we're not saying something phenomenal to one another. Like, whether it's through a text or when I see him, I'm telling him.
Should be flirting me all day.
I flirt all day.
But Pastor D,
He flirts all day. horrible. He's horrible.
He'll get off track and
He'll get real distracted. But that's a good thing. What we're doing is talking about healthy relationships. Healthy. And I be, Ebony, I tell her, girl, if you don't be doing that, then, send this man this and tell him that and shoot him this. And, we got to do this all day long. It's not like, oh, well, let me just say something nice because she did something real nice last night. You know what I'm saying? No, it's all day. It's a lifestyle.
That's right.
If you do not have a lifestyle of constant communication, what do you have? Is it just sexual intimacy when you roll over and get in the mood? Because this is what we want to do. We want to create healthy habits. So every night, I want you to think about this. What's your habit before you go to bed at night? What do? Does it involve your spouse? If it doesn't, how can you get your spouse involved before you go to sleep? Because God tells us in the Word, don't let the sun go down on your wrath. So if y'all mad or a little frustrated about something, that's definitely time for pillow talk. That's time to figure it out. Okay?
Okay, I wanted to add, I wanted to make sure, my communication changed as I got more in the Word and get a better understanding. But it took years for me to get it right because I was trying to do it my way instead of God's way. It results in me being married more than 5 times. But in the end, with the last husband, I learned a whole effective communication.
That's good.
So the thing is that getting it right. And I thank God Almighty, for being able to get it right. I couldn't get it right because I was trying to do it myself. I was doing what I thought was right and what satisfied me. And not speaking out and just withdrawing. And then if you didn't come to me about it, we grew apart. If you don't effectively communicate, you grow apart. And that's what happened with each one of my marriages.
Yeah, that's how divorce happens. Truly, we want, so anything that, we talk about all the areas of divorce, right? Marriage, finances, sex, and communication. But if we really look at the foundation of all of those, the first logistic of it is communication. I didn't communicate about my finances. I didn't communicate about my sexual needs. I didn't communicate about what you did to me. So the whole foundation of that is communication. And I can say, for me, my biggest thing was balance and accountability. That was my thing.
And we're gonna have to talk about that one the next time too. Before we go, is there anybody that want to add something about communication? Ask a question, comment, feedback, because this is very critical. It's like what Sean just said. Sexual infidelity, no communication, financial issues, it really goes back to y'all ain't talking for real. Something is wrong somewhere. If y'all talking, y'all talking at each other, And so let's share. We're being transparent. We're being, talking. So is there anything else? Any questions, comments, feedback you guys want to add or to that?
Well, if nothing, I'm gonna say something. I want to say something real quick. Anybody got anything?
Yeah, we got somebody.
Okay, so y'all. So I want to say this. I want to make sure that because we said a lot, but I want to make sure that we lead with something. We used to have this thing at work at one of my jobs. We used to call it the mirror test, and I think it was developed by it's just some self-help books. I think the author name was Gordon Gallup or something. He got a lot of books, but the mirror test was simply that when you look in the mirror, what it does, it really brings about self-awareness, right? That you look like your reflection or whatever, but it really just talked about self-awareness. But the mirror test was, hey, is it right? Is it ethical? And all these things. And I think a lot of times we need to do that same kind of test when it comes to our communication. And that mirror test, from from the Word of God into your communication is just what I talked about, Ephesians 4:28-29. That no corrupt communication come out of your mouth, but only that is going to build people up. And so when those things come out, you got to be honest with yourself. Did that just build somebody up, or did it tear them down? At the end of the day, that's what it's all about. If did you build them up, or did you tear them down? And so, and the last thing is this: is here's the truth. At the end of the day, all arguments start with this right here, because somebody is mad because they didn't get their way.
Right.
That's what it boils down to. Somebody's mad because they didn't get their way.
And Pastor, one of the husbands and wives know exactly the right thing to say to get to the next person, to make them mad.
Yeah.
I'm gonna challenge you a little bit, Pastor.
Yes, ma'am. Talk to him. I love it. I love it.
So I use that saying a lot. You know, we're here to build you up, not tear you down. In my job, with my kids, my husband. But I think that sometimes people can use that as a cop-out.
Okay.
An excuse. And I believe in the phrase, excuses are useless. A lot of times, if someone says something and you don't like what they say, it could be something they need to say for your livelihood, for your family's livelihood. You can't just expect them not to say it. And then it becomes a situation of, oh, it's how you said it. I believe that can be a cop-out too. Because sometimes a person could have changed how they said something 3, 4, 5 times. You're still not going to like it if it's not what you want to hear. So don't allow build you up instead of tear you down to become your own cop-out. Don't allow that phrase or it's how you said it to become a cop-out. Because then it becomes, for me, when I see that happening, excuses are useless. At some point, you have to take personal accountability for your own actions. And your spouse, if they're allowing you not to, is not doing you or your family any justice in that. It's just not. So at some point, personal accountability has to be, when you say the phrase, look in the mirror, the man in the mirror, it has to be a deep look. Don't allow it to be a cop-out. That's all.
And the woman in the mirror as well.
And the woman in the mirror.
The woman too. Yeah, and I think that's a good point because you can, some things you could say in a nice way, but because they don't like it, they ain't gonna want to hear it. And then, but at the same time, if we're making sure that we analyze the way we say make sure our presentation is not crazy, and we are trying to say it in love, decently, and in order, and they still don't receive it, you just know you did your part, right? Because you didn't get an attitude. You said it nicely. And they still went off. Why? Because it was something they didn't want to hear. Well, you did your part. Now you got to let God do the rest, okay? You have to just trust God that it will not fall to the wayside, that they will come back and be like, you know what, you were right. I just didn't want to face up to that rightness, but you were right. And so that's how, but at the same time, we always have to make sure we are still checking presentation, because in our eyes, presentation is good. In their eyes, that presentation is horrible, And I didn't recognize that until my husband made me aware of my presentation. And I had to fess up to it, that, you know what, I could change. Change a little bit. I could watch how I say that, yeah.
Someone love Jesus.
Yeah, just a little more Jesus in it. Just put Jesus all over, seasoning, and
That's part of your presentation, though.
Yeah,
Put Jesus in it.
Jesus and everything.
Yeah,
But that's good.
Yeah, and bring some clarification to that. No, I don't think that men don't say anything. But I will. I think I would defend till I die and leave here that presentation is everything. And so I do, and I definitely understand your point that if something needs to be said, say it. But at the end of the day, it's still in how you say it. Because here's the truth, that that how you say it depends on, I mean, how that person will receive it. You know, I use this example all the time. How my wife had 5 brothers, would just tear them up, and I would tell her, "Babe, you 100% right," but they're not gonna receive that because of how you say it. And so I think again, it boils down to how we say it, and I think we see those what do you call it, the personality charts, the DC and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And we look at it, and what we do is we'll say, okay, I'm a D. I say D because we got a lot of D's.
A lot of D's have problems with presentation.
A lot of D's in here.
High D. Where your high D's at?
Real high D.
D's.
And so check this out. So here's what we do. Those personality charts are not a, I'm gonna use the word, cop out for us to say, well, I'm a D, so I can talk like
what does D stand for? Dominant. Any dominant people in here?
We got a lot of them in here.
They're not raising their hand. Oh, we got one. Eddie's being real.
We got a lot of them.
We got two. We got two.
We got a lot of them.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
2 D's.
Yeah.
That is not good.
Yeah.
That's when they got their presentation too.
We got
2 D's married together.
If you don't know you're a D, I'm gonna tell you, we got about probably 2 people. We got about 2 people in here. Probably 2 people in here who are not D's, and I'm gonna say that. Okay.
I know I'm a D.
Yeah. So, yeah, double D. So let me say this seriously. So we look at those personality traits, and we'll say, well, I'm a D. Oh, D, strong personality, tell you what they want, blah, blah, blah. And we say, oh, that's us. So I can do that because that's but it's
my
not I am.
personality.
But listen. Here's what this is for. That's to show you, but it also is when you see somebody else and you know what they are, you learn how to communicate with them according to who they are, not according to who you are. And that's what we do most of the time. We communicate with people according to who we are, and we say, well, I ain't gonna do that because I'm a punk. If I talk to you in any kind of different way, I'm serious.
Maybe a little weak.
But great communicators know how other people receive.
That's right.
They know how people receive. And so not that we bow down, but if we want somebody to get something, then we have to put them in a position to be able to receive it instead of throwing stuff at the wall and just hoping it sticks.
Pastor D, that's so good. So I'm gonna put on my therapist hat. So as a therapist, the one thing that they teach us is you have to learn how to communicate flexibly. So how I communicate with my sister is not how I'm gonna communicate with you. Matter of fact, Pastor Trish always says this, that I communicate better with you than I do with her. But I always tell her I communicate better with you because I feel like you're more open and you're great. And you know, she just black and white, and she gonna tell me like it is, and I might need her to hear my heart, but she gonna give me a solution. And so a lot of times we don't realize that we need to be flexible in our communication.
I have gotten better with the little gray. You want me to be gray? That's how she want me to communicate with her.
You get attitude with your gray though. You're like, okay, I'm gonna be great then. But I say that we need to be aware of our ability to flex. Be flexible in our communication. As dominant people, that's a good trait because we have the ability to be aware that we need to be flexible, even though that other person doesn't know that we need to be flexible in our communication. And so as a dominant person, you have the strength, the ability, the capability to change your flexibility of communication. And again, like how you communicate with Deja and how you communicate with Deshaun, I've seen you. So your flexibility of communication is different. And there's a lot of times we don't realize it, that we change our communication because we're saying the same thing, but how we say it, our tone of voice, our body language and how we say it, it brings out the flexibility of how somebody receives it. And so we are not aware in our communication of our body language. And so therefore, when we talk about presentation, we ain't just talk about your tone of voice. We're literally talking about the totality of who you are. Because you can have it in, and I always give the example. If I say, hello, and my arms folded, my tone said hello, but my whole body language said, don't come for me unless I sent for you. Mm-hmm. But I said hello in a nice way. You understand what I'm saying? So a lot of times we can have the tone of the hi, yes, but our body language say, I got an attitude, but I'm gonna come with you with sweet tones, but our message really isn't sweet. So it still messes up the presentation and get frustrated.
I just say that's not fair. I feel like that puts a lot of pressure on a person that's a dominant personality to have to be this person for that person and that person for that person, when all you're doing is saying what needs to be said, right? Why can't you just
Paul
be
became
yourself?
everything.
That's what I'm saying.
Jesus came everything for everybody.
You really.
Person have so much pressure placed on them to be this for that person, this for that person, this for that person. You feel like
Thunder. I'm gonna have to call you my assistant and set up an appointment.
When would you like that appointment?
Hey, listen. Hey, we gotta. Hey, that's how God teaches you some humility.
But also, Tom, I'm gonna say, you said I'm doing it out of my own strength. And that's the thing, that's the reason why it's frustrating for you.
That's good.
Because you're doing it out of your strength. When God gives you the strength to be able to be flexible in your communication, it gets easier and easier.
Yes, it does.
And I had to learn that after the divorce.
My God.
So
we don't want,
after the divorce, I learned how to be flexible in my communication.
And that's the whole point of why we right here.
Listen, you got the ugly. But it took me 6 years of being alone by myself to get it right.
Right.
And I promise you, I had my girls, and I was raising my girls, and I didn't want them to see that ugly father. Mm-hmm. And so I broke myself down, and I was recommitted and renewed because I knew my part. And to her credit, her apology came years later. And her pop blew my mind. I'm sorry I didn't let you be the man you were supposed to be. That's what she said to me. I didn't force that out of her. It knocked the tears out of me. I hung up the phone and I said, wow. Because I wanted that a long time ago. You know what I'm saying? So I know she freed herself, but she freed me as well, because I apologized when I left. However, I spent a lot of time with myself. And because I spent a lot of time with myself, I am told by my daughter, who lived through that abusive stuff, that I want a husband to treat me like you treat Terry. And she lived through that, so that blessed my heart. I got a wife who's outstanding and will do anything for me. And she allows me to be the man. I don't have to rule with an iron hand. I'm actually more laid back because I know her strengths, because I've spent more time paying attention to her. Things I had to learn when I was alone. However, I want to address this one thing, I'm done. You're sowing that seed. Sow that seed to a man. But the further you push that seed down, the longer it'll take for your breakthrough. Sow the seed and let it grab root. You don't have to keep pushing it down deeper and deeper. Because the deeper it is, the longer it's going to take to break through the soil.
This has been good. Y'all got something out of here tonight? Yeah. We always go a little over time with these marriage moments. But we got a lot to learn. We're growing, y'all, right? You know, 25 years of being with my husband, I'm still growing. I'm still learning. I want to grow, right? I want to get better. And I think that's the mentality that we all should have, that we all want to grow and get better, right? And we want to hold each other accountable to that.
Hey, can I say this? This one thing is really profound. Listen to this, guys. I heard somebody say this. They said that marriage is easy. It's the living together that's a challenge.
That's good.
It's easy.
And I wanted to add this. I know we have to go.
Oh, Miguel got something.
Okay.
Miguel ain't saying nothing. Go on, Miguel. Go on, Miguel. You done stirred Tommy. You done stirred Miguel up. Miguel is like, listen.
It's gonna be good right here. I'm gonna give you a time.
I mean, I just want to say real quick. I mean, I haven't been married as long as most of y'all. You know, I mean, I'm only 27, but I've been married for 6. What I want to say real quick is like, me personally, growing up Hispanic and all that, I was always taught or looking at my parents where if, say, my mom, she made a mistake about the groceries or anything in the house, my dad would just blow up at her, like, why can't you do this? You don't do anything. Or if she's sitting down on the couch, you know what I'm saying? That's what I used to do, honestly, like, a couple of times, and then, Lord just spoke to me, and he was like, you just need to chill out and stop being like that. Now, instead of doing that, because, one of my boys, he did that to his wife yesterday. He started hollering at her, and, he was just complaining about some frozen grocery bags. And after he was done, I was like, bro, I mean, you don't have to get mad at her just for grocery bags. Why don't you get up and do it yourself? Show her that you can help her and support her and grow her.
Look at that.
Like, it's not worth it, especially since she just got out of the hospital. So.
Wow.
But yeah, that's
powerful.
And then you went back to what we originally started out with Apostle Vanessa, who said she was a certain way in her marriage, but then realized that it was because of growing up, what she saw. And you were that way with Vanessa because of what you saw. And that's all you knew was what you experienced until God dealt with you. So that's good. That's good.
I just want to say this. I have a lot of things to say. But I want to say this, the closer that I got with God.
Yes.
And the thing is developing myself, forgiving myself, and the things forgiving others. And now that I'm able to approach a person the way I feel, because I'm free in my heart. In marriage, you got to get free in your heart in order to treat another person like you want to be treated. And I had to learn that through all my trials and tribulations, So being able to receive from a person, I don't care how you come to me now. You're not going to come to Sharon. She may have a bad day. She may come to, all right, Apostle. Okay, baby, I understand. The closer you get with God, the better you would be. You would break down, you would quickly change. And forgiveness is what came in my heart for us to quick to forgive each other. Quickly to forgive. Because when we don't forgive quickly, even though he don't deserve to be forgiven, you got to forgive him because God forgave us.
Amen.
And you become everything for everybody, Tommy.
Amen.
And you'll have a long marriage, a prosperous marriage, and won't be like Pete over here saying, well, I wish I became that. An apostle, I wish I, So we're growing. It's growing pains, y'all, right? We're growing together, right?
Amen.
Amen. Well, we're going to get out of here. We supposed to have been done a little while ago. We're going to stand to our feet. This is a believers meeting. We're getting ready to close out. If you want to give, we have text to give. Write checks out to MOCI. Did y'all enjoy tonight?
Amen.
Did everybody get something out of it? Yeah, we're going to keep growing, y'all. We're going to keep growing. We're going to keep holding each other accountable. And we're going to keep speaking life over our marriages, over ourselves, so that we could be better. So if you want to give, text to give is 205-900-7203. You can sow your seed there. You can throw some change in the pennies ministry. That way, if you need a tithes and offering envelope, you can get one from our usher. But, we're done. I just really pray that these seeds that we're throwing out there, that y'all is going to take root in y'all lives and produce a harvest of good fruit.
Amen.
And y'all, we're going to have some good marriages up in here. Amen.